1965. Is it about politics, government?
I think it's a historical movie about the history of Singapore.
可能是一部纪录片吧。
1965 can be anything during that year.
For the longest time, 1965 has been about Lee Kuan Yew. You know, I mean, I've heard about it in the papers for the past 5 years, I think.
If such a big name was involved in the project, then it must mean that it was about Lee Kuan Yew.
The early impressions that I got about 1965 were this is going to be a really amazing political film.
Honestly, I thought it would be just another movie, like a documentary, And then I thought that maybe they are just going to follow the script and then standard stuff that come from textbook. And how exciting can it be?
How will it be a full feature film that appeal to the mass?
What it was already was a story really about the people who are living through that time.
Yes, what can 1965 the movie be about? When the idea was first mooted that there'll be a film featuring Lee Kuan Yew as a key character, no one believed the movie could be made. But here we are, after 5 years, the film is made. In that year, Lee Kuan Yew fought to stay in Malaysia, and then we were kicked out of Malaysia. The 1960s is a colorful era. You can say it's also a noisy era. It was a time when we were trying also to grapple with the idea of being a nation. 1965 is not a very usual Singapore film. It is not your usual commercial fare, so to speak. It was my intention, and I got the buy-in from the director, the two of us, to really look at how can we raise the casting to a level where we call it an inspired casting. When we cast an actor in a role like Mr. Lee Kuan Yew or the lead Cheng, to not have the usual suspect, to not have people that have been working with one another for many years or that we have seen them in the same film together just some time back.
中国有一句话叫“时势造英雄”嘛，很多人并不是说一心想要做一个很伟大的人，或者是想要做英雄，很多时候其实都是从一些很小很小的东西作为一个出发点，就是想要我自己的身边的人生活好一些，不想要他们面对威胁，想要他们有一个安逸的生活，而去做一些东西，然后就慢慢变成一个英雄了。我觉得。小鱼，青这个角色，他其实就是一家之主吧。在那样一个年代，他用他可以的所有的东西去希望他的家人能够生活得更好。
He has been here for 15 over years. He has become a permanent resident in Singapore, and now he has found a family in Singapore. There is a connection between him and the character Cheng, in the sense that Cheng is also, the character has been here for 15 years. His family is also here. We wanted a perspective from Chi to bring to the character where he can understand the sentiment of this character and this person.
I'm playing Sing in the movie, and he is Chi Yu's brother. And the relationship between the brothers is there's a bit of tension in which you can't see. Through the movie, you'll be able to feel like they have different views, different thinking.
I'm acting as Zhou Jun, and she is someone from China. She's come to Singapore with her father, and they run a coffee shop. I think the biggest inspiration came from my husband. Because he's a foreigner who had to come to Singapore to make a living. Calling this place a home was also something he had to grapple with, and he shared a lot of those experiences with me. That sort of helped me a bit more.
Good morning, sir.
新来的，新年第一天。
If there's one word to describe Adi, it would be fresh. He has a fresh perspective on everything. He's not really exposed to what his elders have been exposed to. But when he gets thrown into this whole situation, he kind of sees the ugly side, and it kind of affects him because he's so not used to sort of the real world.
Khatijah is someone who needed to find a will to live again, and to reclaim her faith in people regardless of race. We all know Diana Yusuf as a glamorous artist, but in Khatijah, we see a very different Diana.
I am part of a movie that is historical thing. It's a real honor. I think also to be playing a role that of a person who really did exist. Actually, the role that I'm playing, if my late grandmother was still alive, they would be the same age. It's really nice because I suddenly feel some kind of closeness with my grandmother, even though she's not alive anymore.
Raj in 1965, he would be the unbiased voice of the people. You know, there's a certain comfort that you get when you see Raj. You know, there's all this chaos and madness going on around him, but Raj, he's a stable guy. You know, he's in control.
We have to live with each other in Malaysia.
The lives and the stories of our pioneer generation cannot be separated from the life and story of Lee Kuan Yew.
Many people, especially the young people, had no memory of him in his prime and saw him in the same way people of my generation and older remembered it. And I think they were mesmerized.
When I was asked by Daniel Yun whether I wanted to take on the role, I said, let me think about it, let me read the script. I think that, so I went back, read the script, described his role to my wife in the story. And she just said, well, you should do it because you may never get a chance again. And this is a real opportunity. You know, who has ever been asked to play Lee Kuan Yew before?
I had the privilege to spend time with our late M.M. Lee and really at his most candid and personal moments as well. And when I saw how Ketong portrays and I saw the original clip, especially the partner crying scene, it's just both as touching.
We want to create an authentic experience for the audiences. More than authentic would be to bring you into the world.
We want to recreate the 60s because we want the pioneer generation to relive this very important period. And we want those who are born after our independence to be able to discover, to rediscover this period. Oh, so this is how my parents, my granduncle, my grandparents lived. And this is what we went through as a nation.
The intensive research came to a point where the National Archives commented that the research that we did was about 3 years worth of research material of what a typical museum would do in Singapore. So they were a bit shocked. For both Chinatown and Geylang Serai, the one key thing that I really wanted to emphasize was how dirty it was. The roads are always, filled with trash. Streets are always wet because it's littered with hawkers. I didn't want to make it pristine, otherwise that would be fake. We are trying to make this as realistic as possible, no matter how dirty it was, but that was life back then.
Every little meticulous detail has been taken care of to make sure that the actors go on the set and actually feel like you're transported. What clothes are these and what chickens running around? It's incredible, I tell you.
The atmosphere with people hustling and bustling, running around, people on their bikes riding by, carrying food on their back, and all the vendors set up outside with the cuttlefish. You had some of the authentic candies or whatever they might be from the 60s. You walk into one of those stalls, which you might not even see on camera, you will see there was no detail missed. So I was essentially in 1965.
感触良多了。我当时觉得，哎呦，这个是好像有点为我而写、为我而编排的一个故事。刚好我当年也是开咖啡店，
有一种感觉，好像你回到你自己的60年代的咖啡店，有没有这样的感觉？
有，简直就是嘛！ 哎呀，我看到喜欢的不得了。
Recreating that iconic Land Rover that Lee Kuan Yew used to take. Oh, that was the biggest problem. It was a very, very big challenge. So for that rover, we had to go through a lot of research. So we had to follow very closely, how the vehicles looked like back then, right down to its license plate number, because he always travels in just one, SK6069.
We wanted the actors to be authentic to the period. We want them still to look good. In a sense, not to look good for glamorizing who they are, but to be the people that bring you into the story. We sent some of the actors to an authentic barber. I remember Chiu went through the first day. He spent 3 hours trying to get the hair right. Ultimately, he took ownership of it. He went back to the same barber during the shoot just to get the hair the same way. That was how each and every one of us really got into the character.
Getting Lim Kay Tong to play Lee Kuan Yew, well, I would consider that as the biggest blessing for the film. Because who would play Lee Kuan Yew and who would play him right to get the kind of approval from Singaporeans? We met Lim Kay Tong for the first meeting, and we actually did not tell him before he came to meet us that it was for the role of Lee Kuan Yew. And later on he said that yes, if we told him, he may not have showed up.
First of all, because it's Lee Kuan Yew. Because it's him. He's so significant in terms of our country. How do you begin to even attempt to play him? I don't know whether it's to do with my own personal feelings about the man. It is multi-level, multi-layered in a way, because there's certain things that I never agreed with, in terms of his policies, especially early on. But as, I guess, you grow older, you begin to obviously be a little wiser about what Singapore's about, where it came from and where it is now. And I guess you develop a certain appreciation in terms of the general development of the country and how far it's come, from time when you growing up as a child, which was a totally different ball game.
All my life.
It is called the most enduring moment in the history of Singapore, when Mr. Lee Kuan Yew broke down in front of the camera, when we were kicked out of Malaysia. Many people will come to watch 1965 for this moment. We treat this moment, this scene, with a lot of reverence, with a lot of respect. And therefore, we need to be very accurate, we need to be very exact, but yet with enough space for Kay Tong playing Lee Kuan Yew to sink his teeth into the most defining moment of 1965.
One of the things I like best about your movie is you zeroed in on not only the crying episode in the final press conference, but the conclusion, which many people forget. That was the founding generation's finest moment. I got kicked out of Malaysia because we are a Chinese majority country, so I said this shall be a Chinese country. But we took the nobler road.
This is not a Malay nation, this is not a Chinese nation, this is not an Indian nation. We are going to have a multiracial nation in Singapore.
Against a very broad backdrop of our political history, we tell very personal stories about our pioneer generation. The Chinese from China, the Indians from India, and the Malays from here and Malaysia. Suddenly, they realized that they were not going home, that this small island was going to be home.
This is one of the rare times when an idea was mooted and then the script took so much time to develop. And we want to tell a compelling narrative, but at the same time to tell this very important moment in our Singapore history.
The movie 1965, focusing on the relations between the races, was true to history. The race riots were very, very significant turning point in Singapore's history. The relations between the races changed overnight.
I can't remember ever spending so much time crafting that scene because of that one incident that happened. It brought everyone together. The entire cast of characters' lives were completely transformed because of the incident in the riot.
1965 is a dramatic thriller. It dramatizes the lives of people living in the 1960s. And the storytelling is paced in a way that creates intrigue, a sense of mystery, and a sense of expectation. In this way, the storytelling is character-driven. And these characters will match the real characters of our history in 1965.
I wanted to shoot a scene which involves 100 people on the first day, and it was only about 400 meters away from the protest that was actually happening in Batam. And you look back and I look at the Batam and what it is, we could very well still be Batam, Singapore, if not for where we are. And the kind of unrest that is present when we were there and what we were about to shoot just kicks home, you know, and I think that is something that we have taken for granted here.
Like when you tell us the independence of Singapore, I'm born in the 90s, so we really don't understand how it feels like at that time. National Day is just a public holiday. It's like every year is 47, 49th, and this year is 50. To us, I feel that it was just a number. So we really won't understand how things were like in that time, like how the chaos during that time, how it affected the daily lives. After going through the movie, I really understand that the peace in which we have now is something in which we should not take for granted.
You know, this thing about taking things for granted, you know, it's not easy to get here, oh, your forefathers have done so much for you. I don't understand it. I really don't. And I think I share this sentiment with quite a lot of Singaporeans. But making this film made me appreciate it much, much more. You know, it makes me want to know more about how we come about.
刚刚开始知道这部电影的时候，其实压力负担是挺大的，因为我知道1965对于新加坡来说意味着什么。但是同时我又觉得是一个很好的一个机会，因为其实我在新加坡这么多年，对新加坡这里其实有很多感情，好像一个家的一种情结。虽然我不是在这里出生长大，但是毕竟在这里生活了，在这里建立了家庭，有很多这方面的感情、感觉想要去表达。
When I was shooting 1965, one of the things that I had to grapple with was, what does home mean? The idea of home has always been something that I think, as a young Singaporean, we tend to take for granted. Because, yes, indeed, I've been born years after our independence, so not knowing what it was like back then, not knowing, you know, how different people from different places had to come together to build a home, is something that I think I can only imagine.
My family members and my grandmother and my father, they've all been through all these things. As a child, growing up, I hear about it all the time. And to be able to be in it and sort of relive the experience through their eyes is a wonderful thing. My generation would have never seen it, but to be able to have felt it in the script and in the film was totally outstanding.
The movie brought me back in time to the period as if it was just happening. Having that chaotic feeling and being right in the middle, in the crux of a riot is quite scary. So I can only imagine a little bit of how the real thing was and how these people back then felt.
We wrapped our shoot in January, and while we were editing, Mr. Lee was taken ill, and then he passed on. We took our cameras for pickup shoots in the week of mourning, including the funeral procession. Suddenly, 1965 becomes even more relevant to Singaporeans in this year where we celebrate our Golden Jubilee.
Is a movie important enough to actually reach out to the wider audience, to every single person, different age group at different levels? SG50 is about looking towards the future rather than talking about history. The history is for us to learn a lesson, for us to know how we have come to this stage. It's to give us an idea, how do you want to build this from now to the future?
1965 is a mainstream film. It's a commercial film. It is not the usual Singapore commercial film like I'm Not Stupid, Money No Enough, and it's also not like 12 Stories or Ilo Ilo. And it's not like any of these wonderful Singapore films. But I hope it can be wonderful in its own way, that Singaporeans can enjoy it, catch a glimpse of our past, and also think about this place, Singapore, as home.
1965 is very unique. If you ask me very honestly, I live with the hope that this movie can travel around the world. For people who want to know about Singapore, a tiny island, since then, 1965 until today, the vast development. Our confidence is still that this movie is commercially viable and it's something different that we've not done it before.
1965是一部当音乐响起你会起鸡皮的一部电影。
It is a very people-oriented movie with a very strong narrative.
1965 reminds us how fragile any society is with regard to different races coexisting together.
A movie where it is able to link all Singaporeans together.
This one is special. This one is more than a film. It is a learning experience. It is an eye-opening experience.
This is one movie that you don't just watch the movie and appreciate the movie, but once you get out and look around us, our real movie, real world, I think you appreciate even more. So I think in that aspect, I'm very honored and proud to be associated with this movie.
1965 is a special experience. I hope Singaporeans will relive 1965. And I hope 1965 will make Singaporeans rethink with new insights about being Singaporean again.